So thank you for your, what I'm sure is a really helpful talk. And we need these body hacks. You know, we do need these body hacks to survive, but everyone has a different body hack, but the more body hacks you hear, the more ideas you get that maybe will help your own body. So thank you. We don't pay enough attention to that. Are there any questions? Yes.
Do I have to touch anything or
No, just hold it by you.
So in our practice, we ask, who am I? And we say, I don't know.
What am I?
What am I? Okay. And when we get into a deep relationship with another person, do we also ask, who are you or what are you? I don't know, or does it translate there? And do you bring the attention back to yourself, or like how do you engage with that?
That's a wonderful question. Okay, true love, we hope. So yeah, so what am I is not about you. So what am I is, what is your true substance, your true self? And your true self and everyone else's true self is no different. So you're looking for that thing which everyone has and which permeates this whole universe. This water bottle has it, okay? So it's not about, I'm over here and my beloved is over there. You know, it's not like that. This what am I is very, very wide. It's very broad, okay? And for God's sake, don't go up to her and say, who are you? Who are you anyway? Which I know you don't, but you know, people make crazy mistakes sometimes. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so the idea of reincarnation and karma, as in you know, that things that happen to you in this life are a result of things that happened to you in your prior life, which is part of, you know, the compass of Zen.
Mm-hmm.
And
The compass of Zen Master Sung San's book, I should say.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And kind of presented as fact. You know, this is the way life is. You know, and so and there's a lot of dismissing that in the West. And so my question is, at what point is it more of a European supremacist viewpoint that the Eastern idea of reincarnation that's brought here with Buddhism is just not true? You know, at what point does that become well, a more supremacist idea that we're actually putting down the Asian thought of that? Does my question make sense?
It does.
I guess I'm wondering if it's a bit. I wonder if it's a bit racist on our part to just totally dismiss that. Which, I will be honest with you, I totally dismiss that. I have a lot of problems believing that this little baby that I worked with and was shaken and had their brain scrambled, and that was done to them because of something they did in their prior life. I have a lot of problem with that. Yeah. Is that still not a bit racist on my part?
So that's a wonderful question. So Stan and I went to, there's a new Korean restaurant in town, and it's great. It's Korean casual, like Korean street food. It's not like the upper class thing where the vegetables are arranged and stuff. You know, it's like, you know, mayonnaise stuff and melted American cheese on your kimchi rice. It's really great. Unfortunately, they don't have too many vegetarian things, but it's really great. And they had, you know, a TV on, as a lot of places do, and they had a TV on, and it was some kind of, you know, Korean TV thing. I don't know if it was from this country or Korea, but it was definitely Korean. And there was, mostly it was music. It looked like it was some kind of, not like Korea's Best Singer, but maybe something sort of like that. And I was really struck by how Western the music was and how Western the clothes were. And I started wondering, what if instead of Europe being the bunch of people that decided to enslave everybody and, you know, take over everything and tell everyone to do, what if it had been, you know, East Asians? What if it had been South Asians? What if it had been Africans? What would the common culture, in quotes, what would the common culture look like? You would be grooving to fabulous African rhythms all the time. You know, would be doing that wonderfully complex, you know, Northeast Asian stuff with a, you know, sort of blips that you don't know where they're going to come, and then they're there, and, you know, like, what would our clothes look like? You know, would we have all bright patterns like from Africa? Would we have, you know, these silks, and, you know, what would we be wearing, you know? And it just struck me, the arbitrariness of this. I mean, it's not arbitrary because it happened, so I guess it's not arbitrary, but the sort of the weirdness of it. And so, yeah, Liz, that's really what your question is pointing to. It's like an accident of history that the people who kind of ended up dominating world culture in a way were trying to, you know, they had this immense cultural influence that they don't believe in rebirth. And what if it had been people who believed in rebirth? But you said that when you first started off, you said there's this idea of reincarnation, which actually rebirth is a better way to put it. So there's this, you started with this idea of reincarnation. And the point is that's an idea. Rebirth is an idea. Not rebirth is also an idea, right? You and I, you know, coming from the West, have this idea of not rebirth. I also, by the way, there was a Japanese Zen master, Fukushima Roshi, who would sometimes come to town through the art museum because he was a famous calligrapher. And I heard him say that he didn't believe in rebirth. And he's from Japan, you know, very, very Japanese, you know, culturally. So it's an interesting thing, but the thing that it really points to is there's an idea, and everyone's going to have their idea, and their idea is going to come from what other culture they're in. It's interesting because Zen Master Sung-san really believed in rebirth. I mean, he believed in it as much as a Tibetan did, although probably in a different kind of format. He had this really strong belief in rebirth, but he was raised Presbyterian. So, you know, I mean, he came from, you know, he went to church as a kid. He was Presbyterian when he was growing up. I think it was the North Koreans were Presbyterian and the South Koreans were Methodist or something like that. There was this kind of, so in this country, all the Korean churches are Methodist because there are not many people from North Korea who got out. But yeah, so it's this interesting question. And if we think I'm better than you are because I believe in rebirth, or I'm better than you are because I don't believe in rebirth, that's when the kind of cultural imperialism, whether it's coming from, you know, the Europeans or coming from the, you know, Asians, because all over Asia, South Asia, East Asia, all over Asia, you know, rebirth is a big part of the culture. So if you have this idea that I'm better than you because I believe in this, oh, you stupid person, you don't believe in that. You know, how can you explain your life if you don't believe in rebirth? You know, how can you be so silly as to believe in rebirth, right? If you have either of those attitudes, then, you know, you have a problem. And that's the problem you're talking to, this notion of cultural superiority. I'm better than you are. But if you say, you know, I don't know what cultural influences make me believe what I believe, but this is, you know, my idea, and this is your idea, and I can respect your idea, and you can respect my idea, then there's no problem. You know, rebirth was one of the things that Buddha didn't really talk about. He didn't talk about the mechanism of it, which is the thing that everyone gets into, you know, their minds get all, what is the mechanism of it? But it was just in his culture, and so he referred to it because it was in his culture. So he would refer to it all the time. You will be reborn as a blah, 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 you know. In the Lotus Sutra, there's all this stuff about, first you're, you in this life you're like this, the next life you're like this, and in so many lives, so many kalpas, so many whatevers, you will be a Buddha, and you will be this kind of Buddha, and you'll have a cool Buddha name, like Buddha of the running water or something like that, So yeah, so just hold it lightly and understand that our ideas are not what's really happening. They're just our way of coming to grips with what's happening. And then I have to tell you my rebirth story, which about half the people on screen or in this room have heard. So after I've been practicing for about 10 years, I was living here, and there was a famous Tibetan teacher who came through town. I forget who sponsored him, because we didn't actually have like a Tibetan group in town, but someone was sponsoring him. And he gave a talk up in the yoga studio that's above where the Roost is now. And I don't know if it's still a yoga studio, but he gave a talk there. And I came there, and of course, so okay, you had the Rinpoche, who was probably in his late 40s, early 50s, and then you had the cute young monk, probably in his early 30s, who was the translator, and then you had the old doddering master, who was just kind of sitting there drooling. So you had these three guys, and so the translator, so the Rinpoche was not, he didn't have a lot of English, so everything had to go through the translator. And of course, they're talking a lot about rebirth, because that's really, really deep in Tibetan Buddhism. And so it means even how they choose their teachers, right? Their highest teachers are chosen that way. And so he's talking a lot about rebirth, and I raise my hand and I say, I am a Zen student. And I want to know, and he was talking about emptiness also. I said, I am a Zen student. I understand emptiness. I understand emptiness. What is there to be reborn? So, the guy gives some kind of standard answer, which didn't cut it. And he knew it didn't cut it, and I knew it didn't cut it. So afterwards I come up, and everyone, everyone's dispersing. I go up again. I said, look, I really understand emptiness. I couldn't say that. What is there to be reborn? And I say this in English, and the translator guy starts translating, but the teacher, he understood what I said, and he grabbed my arm, and he took, the one sleeve, one arm has no sleeve, and one arm has a big sleeve, and he goes, karma, 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 like that. And I said, thank you. Because karma is not personal. We think it is, right? Was it Gladstone Gander who had all the really good karma in the Donald Duck karma comic books, and anything he did, he'd be walking along the street, he'd stumble, and before he fell, he'd find a $100 bill, that kind of thing. And then you had the guy, well, not Donald. Nothing good ever happened to Donald Duck. He was a wreck. He'd stumble and he'd break his neck or something. But the point, so we think of karma as being personal. Oh, that's your karma. It's your karma that your legs are always falling asleep, right? But karma is not personal. Karma, like I do something, and who knows who it's going to end up affecting, right? We say someone does something bad and it has bad results, but it doesn't always have bad results to that person, except for, of course, the sort of closure in their soul, the little piece of rot that happens. So, you were talking about this shaken baby, right? The karma that caused that baby shaking didn't necessarily come from a previous life. It came from the life of the person who shook that baby, right? So if you understand karma that way, then these questions, am I reborn? Yeah, who is there to be reborn? That's a good question. If you want a great question to look at, and if you believe in rebirth, then you could ask yourself, what is there to be reborn? That's a wonderful, 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 great question to ask yourself. It's the same really as what am I? So whether you believe in rebirth, that's just your idea. And whether you believe in no rebirth, that's also just your idea. These are just our ideas. So understand that. And yeah, we have ideas and we use these ideas. How do we use these ideas to help this world? And one way that is not effective is to tell the person who disagrees with you, your idea is stupid, right? I mean, we're very polarized now in this country. And those of us who have friends and family on the supposed other side know that it's not helpful to say you're an idiot because you voted for so-and-so, because you voted for Trump, because you voted for Biden. You know, you're an idiot because you believe the election was stolen or because you believe the election was not stolen. That doesn't work. So somehow we have to have respect for each other. And at the same time, we have to stand up for love and compassion, kindness. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for your question. Are there any other questions? We have time for one short, question. My answer has to be short as well as the question. If there are any other questions? Yes. Oh, wait.
What about like rebirth of a moment? Like,
Pardon? Could you say?
like rebirth of a long time ago, before I started practicing Zen, these words came into my mind and I just kept repeating them. And it was, each moment I die, and each moment I'm born again. So that's like a different form of rebirth that doesn't involve like this physical body used to be an old man that died in Tibet or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's helpful.
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, many people find that helpful. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the notion that rebirth is within any given lifetime. You die and are reborn either every moment or maybe, often, like you some kind of big shift in your life or something like that. Yeah, you can think of rebirth as within one lifetime. Right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes. Well, wait.
Is your leg this morning got a rebirth?
Pardon?
Your leg.
Tom's leg, has it been reborn?
Is it Judy's leg was reborn at this moment? Oh.
I wish my leg would be reborn. For those who don't know, I have a very wonky knee right now, and I'm sitting in a chair because I know I could sit in a cushion, but I don't know I could get up from it. And there were some very dramatic scenes in the Dharma room on Wednesday and on Saturday. When those people who helped me were nodding their heads. It was extremely dramatic. It took about 15 minutes to get me out to the car. So, yeah. Right, yeah. But that's interesting, because whatever your body is like, you can still practice. It's a very interesting thing. It doesn't matter. You can be lying in your bed, unable to get out of bed, and you can still practice. That's very important. So thank you all. It's time for announcements and stopping the recording.